Hello, and this video is concerned with air quality, which you'll find in the alkanes booklet. Okay, what we're looking for today is an understanding of the problems associated with burning fossil fuels. By this stage you should be able to write the equations for the combustions of alkanes, both the complete and incomplete. And so you should be able to recall the issues with some of the gases being produced in these combustions. Hopefully you should be able to write and recall the equations for the production and the treatment of some of these toxic gases that will and harmful gases that we'll encounter, and also to be able to explain how a catalytic converter works. Right, so what's the whole point of burning crude oil? We burn about 90% of everything we get out of a barrel of crude oil, generally for transport, heating, electricity purposes. So one of the issues with burning petrol for the use in cars is that the combustion is not always as efficient as it should be. And what you're probably aware of is that petrol comes in the variety of unleaded. Okay, there once was a time where the petrol had a lead additive into it. This was to reduce something called knocking in car engines. Nowadays we use other types of alkanes, cyclic alkanes, branch chain isomers of alkanes to try and reduce this as well. But still, the actual combustion is not perfect, and so we have to deal with the pollution that we form using a catalytic converter at the end. And also one of the things you need to be aware of, but not covered in this video, is that crude oil is a diminishing resource, so there's a finite lifetime of it, and so we need to develop and use alternative fuels, sometimes biofuels, electric cars, and I'm sure you've heard all about electric cars so far. Okay, so what you may have seen in a petrol station is that some of the unleaded varieties have a number on them, such as here's got 98, here we've got 95. Now this is actually a photograph of a French petrol station, because it says here sans plomb, which means unleaded, and then it's got this E10, which actually means that it's got 10% of bioethanol in this unleaded petrol. Unleaded petrol in the UK also has ethanol in there as well, but we don't advertise the fact on our petrol pumps. Okay, so what do these numbers mean? It's the octane rating of the fuels, and there is a scale of 0 to 100. Typically, we find in the UK that most unleaded petrol is 95. Sometimes like the super unleaded or the premium unleaded is like 98, 99 rating. Essentially, the higher the octane rating, the more efficient the combustion of the fuel. Okay. Now, the reason we use the alkanes from crude oil is because there is a plentiful supply from crude oil. Although we've got a finite resource and it's running out, it's not going to run out for another like 20, 30, 40 years maybe. Also, if you compare the energy that you obtain relative to something like coal, then in actual fact you get twice as much energy per gram of fuel you use. Okay. But as I've said before, the issues are sustainability of the oil and the pollution in the atmosphere. And here's a nice little example of just what like the smog can look like. Now, the pollution from cars, we're going to look at carbon-based pollutants, nitrogen-based pollutants, and also sulfur-based pollutants. Again, this bit you should know from GCSE. The burning of hydrocarbon leads to the formation of carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. Carbon monoxide is toxic. It is a poisonous gas formed by the incomplete combustion of hydrocarbons in the car. So this means that in the combustion chamber in the car engine, we're not getting the right amount of oxygen in there. Carbon dioxide, this is not harmful to health directly, because it's a major contributor to global warming, and is classed as a greenhouse gas. And so, again, I'm sure you're aware of the effect of the greenhouse gas, that it's causing the Earth's temperature to increase, and this is having a knock-on effect on climate change. One aspect you might not be aware of is particulate carbon. And this is, again, through incomplete combustion, carbon particles too small to see by the human eye are being emitted from exhaust pipes, and these can cause cancer and can also exacerbate, so trigger asthma attacks, make asthmas worse. The nitrogen-based pollutants, they are called nitrogen oxides, sometimes called noxious gases because of the, or NOx, because of this formula here, because it's NO2 or N2O4, sometimes NO. Now, nitrogen monoxide or nitric oxide, you have to know how this is formed. Okay, this is formed in the car engine when nitrogen in the air reacts with oxygen under the conditions of high temperature and pressure in the car engine. The car engine typically has a temperature of about 2000 Kelvin. The problem with these gases is that they are irritants and cause problems for people with like existing breathing conditions such as asthma. Also, these NOx gases are responsible for formation of low-level ozone and smog in cities. So, just picture it up here. But also, they can react with water in the atmosphere and oxygen to form nitric acid, and this causes acid rain, which can cause like massive deforestation. These three equations you need to know. Okay, so this is what occurs in the car engine. 1 molecule of nitrogen, 1 molecule of oxygen to form 2 molecules of nitrogen monoxide. And then in the atmosphere, you tend to find that nitrogen monoxide will react with oxygen to form nitrogen dioxide. This could occur in some catalytic converters. And then, how does this get converted into nitric acid to make acid rain? You get 4 nitrogen dioxides plus 2 water molecules plus a oxygen molecule, and you get 4 molecules of nitric acid. You can use multiples in these equations, sorry, in this one and this one, i.e. you can multiply everything by a half there, multiply everything here by a half. The sulfur-based pollutants, these are a little more tricky in terms of their equations for the AS chemistry and A-level chemistry. So, sometimes you find sulfur-containing compounds trapped in the fuels, particularly in diesel, and some petrol manufacturers make a big thing about they have low sulfur diesel. It's less of an issue in petrol, but nevertheless, the sulfur, it reacts with oxygen in the car engine, or if we're using it in a power station, it can make sulfur dioxide. The sulfur dioxide will then react with water, and again half a molecule of oxygen, so to make sulfuric acid, which is another form of acid rain which causes massive deforestation. If you compare your equation to the nitric acid here, they are very similar equations that we have to learn. So 2 of them, 1 of them, half of them, let's give 2 of them, and that would be 1, 1, half, 1. So that might help you to learn them. Now, we've already stated that carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, but what you're probably less aware of is that sometimes some of the petrol will get through the engine unburnt. Again, there's just not enough oxygen to combust it at all. And so some of these unburnt hydrocarbons are released from car exhaust. They can give rise to photochemical smog, but they can also give rise, they can also exacerbate the greenhouse effects because they're greenhouse gases. Water vapor. Now, water vapor, you probably don't know, is also a greenhouse gas, but because water vapor is in equilibrium with liquid water, i.e. rain, it's not considered as much of an issue here. Now, the greenhouse effects. What actually happens is that the sun heats up the surface of the earth. When the sun moves to the other side of the world, the heat energy is radiated back out from the surface of the earth. Now, heat energy is actually called infrared radiation. What happens is that the bonds, the covalent bonds in molecules such as carbon dioxide or water or these unburnt hydrocarbons, absorb that energy, and then they release that energy. Most of it gets released back into space. Okay, but some of that energy is emitted back down to Earth, and then that causes this greenhouse effect. We're going to leave the video at this stage for the moment. The next video will be on how the catalytic converter itself works. Okay, thank you for watching.